Tonight, early voting underway in DuPage County. Chicago starts Thursday. We run down the big races to watch, and we give you some advice on how to handle those endless judicial questions. The data center dilemma. They provide jobs and economic growth, but suck up all the natural resources. What Illinois is planning to do about it. A proposed millionaire's tax makes its return. Will voters approve of it?
Welcome to the Chicago Report. I'm Schutz. New video evidence causing huge reaction today. It's the latest development in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Now, Pima County, Arizona police released a video of a potential subject captured on camera. And if you haven't been following, this is part of the investigation into the disappearance of the mother of the Today Show host, Savannah Guthrie. Now, Nancy was reported missing 10 days ago. Initially, law enforcement said footage from recording devices at Nancy's home was lost. But with the help of the FBI and Google engineers, officials now say they were able to recover video from residual data. It shows a masked person, as you can see, walking up to her front door and putting their hand in front of the camera. Now, earlier today, Fox 32 reporter Casey Cronus interviewed former FBI hostage negotiator Phil Andrew on Chicago Live. Here's his explanation for why it took 10 days for this footage to surface.
Law enforcement didn't have immediate access to this because of these cameras, and there was not a subscription. It doesn't really always keep that. So they were able to pull from that this resident images right before the cameras were disabled.
And last week, News Nation crime reporter Ashley Banfield said her sources told her police were looking at Savannah's brother-in-law as a person of interest. Now, here is Mr. Andrews' reaction to speculation the kidnapping could be an inside job.
Do you think that someone who knows Nancy or knows the family is connected?
Well, I think I want to be careful about no, because it might not be a two-way street. This is somebody that knew the family, but the family might not have known them. Anybody, because they have such a high profile. This is definitely somebody that has some emotional connection to the family that the family may not have any idea about.
And the country awaits further developments in that case. Moving our lens to D.C., the Epstein fallout continues. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick grilled on Capitol Hill Tuesday by Democrats about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The White House says the president still supports Lutnick. Now, he's previously claimed he cut off ties with Epstein in 2005, but now he's admitting he met with Epstein twice after Epstein's 2008 conviction for soliciting prostitution from a child. Those meetings included a visit to Epstein's private island, but Lutnick downplayed all those interactions.
You've seen all of these documents, of these millions and millions of documents. There may be 10 emails connecting me with him, probably about 10 emails connecting me with him over a 14-year period. I did have lunch with him as I was on a boat going across on a family vacation. My wife was with me, as were my 4 children and nannies.
And we await further developments there. Now, we're just a couple days away from the start of early voting in Chicago for the March 17th primary. DuPage County, early voting is already underway for all our friends out there in Itasca and Elmhurst and Glen Ellen and all those great towns. So, folks, if you have your mind made up and you live in Chicago, starting Thursday, you go to the Loop Supercenter site at 191 North Clark. And then starting March 2nd, there will be a site open in each of Chicago's 50 wards. Now, here's a crowd for a busy Senate race. Each candidate looking to fill the seat of longtime Illinois U.S. Senator Dick Durbin. On the Democratic side, you've got Representatives Robin Kelly and Raja Krishnamurthy and Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton. On the Republicans, you have Don Tracy, the former Illinois GOP chair. Now, how about the GOP primary? To find a candidate to take on Governor Pritzker in the general election, these 3 are duking it out, among a few others. But here are the frontrunners: Darren Bailey, Ted Dabrowski, and DuPage County Sheriff James Mendrick. And then Cook County Board President, longtime incumbent Toni Preckwinkle, seeking another term, but she's got a challenge from 42nd Ward Chicago Alderman Brendan Riley, who just received the Chicago Tribune endorsement. And then there's incumbent Cook County Assessor Fritz Kagi, getting a challenge from a former assessor's office employee, Pat Hines, and a familiar name in Chicago politics. And we're going to bring you all of these debates right here on the Chicago Report, starting next Monday, February 16th at 6 p.m. live with that Senate contest on the Democratic side. Kelly, Krishnamurthy, Stratton, all committed to come here Monday for a live discussion. No rules, no holds barred. We're just going to really get in depth on all these issues with these candidates. It's going to be a lot of fun and very informative starting next Monday. And then we can't forget about all those judicial races that appear on the ballot every year because, you know, you go in with a plan to vote for all your candidates and you see all these, do I keep this judge? Do I throw away that judge? How are you supposed to know as a voter? Well, one of the ways is organizations like the Chicago Bar Association. Every year they come out with their judicial recommendations. And joining us now to explain this is the CBA's Jeffrey Finke. He's been chair of the Evaluations Committee since 1997. Thanks, Mr. Fink. Thanks for joining us. First of all, lay out for us what you're informing voters on with this guide.
We're informing voters on lawyers who are seeking a judgeship. And we're talking about the circuit court. There's 45 positions and one appellate court position. And again, these are lawyers who are seeking to be judges, and the Chicago Bar Association has had a form of judicial evaluation since 1887, and we have a nonpartisan, unbiased procedure in which candidates for judicial office submit applications to us. They give references. We interview the references. We have investigators write reports, and then we interview the candidates, and we give them ratings, highly qualified, qualified, or not recommended. And in the case of the 45 candidates for circuit court, there were 2 highly qualified, 31 qualified, and 12 not recommended. But I want to say any individual voter does not have dozens of candidates on the ballot. In any given voting area, there will only be 7 to 12 candidates on the ballot.
So you
not all judges run throughout the entire county.
Right, the circuit. So the voters need to look at your guide and then evaluate which judges will be on their specific ballot in their place. But you mentioned the handful that are not recommended. What accounts for being a judge not recommended for retention? What are the kind of things that you look at?
Well, first of all, 8 of the 12 declined to submit an application to the Chicago Bar Association. Under our rules, they're automatically not recommended. So we actually, of those that we screened, we found 4 not recommended, and we have criteria: integrity, legal knowledge, legal ability, judicial temperament, diligence, punctuality, professional experience. We want people on the bench who know how to be a judge through their legal experience. If, for example, you wouldn't want someone to be a judge who's never tried a case before. So we evaluate their litigation experience. As I mentioned, with respect to the investigation report, we talk to adversaries for the candidates and find out, have there been problems? How well have they performed? So we write this up, and these guides are available at the Chicago Bar Association, both a pocket guide that you can carry in to the voting booth, as well as a 17-page judicial guide that sets forth our written evaluations of each candidate.
So that's a very exhaustive process you go into. Jeffrey Finke from the Chicago Bar Association talking about that judicial guide. I do think we have a link to this. It's at Chicago Bar or chicagobar.com, but we will we will make sure to link our viewers so they can get ready access to that information. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
You got it. Well, Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson at varying times have pushed a millionaire's tax to help alleviate some of Illinois' chronic fiscal woes. Now, a familiar face is pushing for that once again to get that question on the general election ballot. Joining us is that familiar face, former Illinois Governor Pat Quinn. Governor Quinn, thanks for being here. Good to see you.
Well, glad to be here.
All right, you've been on this case for a while. You've been trying to get this on the ballot. You want a millionaire's tax, but tell us specifically what you're looking for.
I started in 2010. I think 2014, when I was governor, we put it on the ballot statewide. Should we have a surcharge only on millionaires, those who declare more than $1 million a year in income? That's a pretty select group, about 1% of all the Illinois taxpayers. But by having a surcharge on them, we can raise over $4.5 billion for property tax relief. Illinois has the highest property taxes in the country, and we need to put a millionaire amendment on the ballot that's not advisory, but a binding referendum this November when people go to vote for all the offices in our state in order to get long overdue property tax relief.
So you want all this. Basically, it's kind of taking money from, it's kind of Peter Pan. I mean, from the 1% here and helping out others with their property tax bills. But given all of Illinois' fiscal woes, shouldn't it go toward pension debt, toward education, just given all the demands?
Well, you could give it some of that money to education if the local school districts agree to roll back some of their property tax levies. I think that's worthy of consideration. But the bottom line is people who live from paycheck to paycheck, we have over 3 million households in Illinois who are suffering with unfair property taxes. In Cook County, the first property tax bills for this year go out on March 1st. So when people go to vote in the primary, they're going to be, able to send a message to elected officials. We need a millionaire amendment like they did in Massachusetts to reduce the levies and make it more affordable on everyday people who are trying to stay in their homes and also in their businesses.
In the past, you were doing what you've been doing for many decades, which is going out and getting signatures. This time, this is not a citizen-led referendum. You're trying to get public officials. So you want Springfield, you want the governor to get on board and vote on this. So they would pass a bill which would put this question on the ballot, and then voters would have to vote on it, correct?
Only the legislature has the power to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot for property tax relief through the Millionaire Amendment. We had an advisory question on that in 2024 in November. People voted by over 60% in favor of this. So it's really important for legislators to listen to the voters, not legislators to tell the voters what to do. This is where the voters tell the politicians what to do. And the Millionaire Amendment is the best way to get long overdue property tax relief for people who cannot afford these unfair levies. They're getting higher and higher. Last year, in neighborhoods all across the city of Chicago, they had extraordinarily high property taxes. This is the key way to do it. I was governor for 6 years. I campaigned for this. I believe in this. And I think this is the year to do it.
Do you think Governor Pritzker agrees and the legislative leaders agree that this is the year to do it? We'll hear Governor Pritzker's State of the State next week.
Yeah, next week the governor's giving his budget address. I sure hope so, because the voters have the last call when it comes to our democracy. They're in charge, not the politicians. And when people say the property tax system of Illinois is out of control, it's unfair to home ownership and to everyday people owning a business, we've got to do something about it, not just talk about it. We got to vote for it in November in a binding referendum that gives real relief to the people who need it the most.
Although Governor Pritzker really put a lot of money behind a graduated income tax proposal a couple years back, well, several years back now, and it failed. It didn't get the, it didn't meet the threshold. So why would this succeed where that failed?
Well, it didn't have any property tax relief in it back in 2020. I talked to the governor. I said, I'd have more property tax relief if you want to be successful. I've been working on this for a long time. Ever since I've been in politics. I did petition drives in 1978 for property tax reform. Illinois has resisted that. We cannot have that anymore.
Who could forget in the petition drive to reduce the amount of state lawmakers, legislators.
We succeeded at that.
Where you got the standing boovation, correct?
Right. I was booed by the legislature for 3 minutes.
I've heard that story a couple times.
But the bottom line, Paris, is this is a year to have a real affordability amendment, something on the ballot that people can vote for that will cut their property taxes. And that's what the people want.
Well, you frame it that way. This is the right year for that because affordability and costs are the forefront of everybody's mind, aren't they?
That's right. And for folks that are struggling to keep their home or get an opportunity to be a homeowner, you can't have a property tax system that just is unpredictable, that goes higher and higher year after year, and it's not based on ability to pay. Taxes should be based on ability to pay, and that's a principle as old as the Bible. And for those who are making $1 million a year incomes, they have to pay a little more in order to give property tax relief to millions of homeowners and small business. That's the way to go for Illinois.
And you're going to be testifying tomorrow at Chicago City Council. Tell us what's going to happen at this hearing, because as I understand, the City Council is not considering a Chicago-only version of this, are they?
Well, the city is a very important part of Illinois. I live in the west side of Chicago, and I went and talked to everybody at City Council, City Hall, about how important this is for all the aldermen to realize that get your state legislators to vote yes for the Millionaire Amendment for property tax relief. This is the way to help your constituents, families and businesses, all across Chicago, all across Cook County, all across Illinois are paying too much in property taxes, and I think a lot of voters would agree with me when I say that.
Speaking of property taxes, since you were governor, how do you think you might handle this Bears situation where they've got this proposal in Indiana and they want this property tax, quote-unquote, certainty bill in Arlington Heights?
Yeah, they're talking about a 40-year freeze on their property taxes for the Bears, an $8.9 billion franchise. I don't think that's fair. None of us get a 40-year property tax freeze.
Although their argument is like, if they have a $200 million a year property tax bill, they can't lure investors.
Well, they're not going to get that kind of a bill, but they exaggerate in order to try and get some break that's really way too much. But let's think about the people who are the heart and soul of Illinois. Hard-working families, raising kids, working jobs, trying to stay in their home. They get their property tax bill, it's a punch in the nose. You know, Ben Franklin said there are two things inevitable in life: death and taxes. But he didn't say it's inevitable to be taxed to death. And that's what we're trying to do here. Reduce property taxes on people who need help the most.
Well, then I'm going to ask you to fill in the blank while we go here. As you say all the time, it's the will of the...
Will of the people is the law of the land. That's what we want to do.
There you go. All right. Former Governor Pat Quinn testifying tomorrow at City Council on the Millionaire's Amendment. And we'll be right back after this. All right, data centers, it's kind of like you can't live with them because of the exorbitant costs and strain on energy resources, but you can't live without them because the economy is going to depend on them, AI and technology advancements, so on and so forth. So Illinois lawmakers, along with environmental groups, are proposing some new legislation to get this booming industry under control. Yesterday, Governor Pritzker said that data centers should pay their own freight.
Data centers should pay for the electricity that they are using, and if they are in any way going to increase the price of electricity for consumers, they should pay for that increase, not the consumers.
And joining us with more is Jen Walling, for the Executive Director of the Illinois Environmental Council, who has been busy coming up with this legislation to propose to lawmakers, and you're going to propose it tomorrow. First of all, let's lay out the scope of the problem. How many data centers are there online or proposed, and why are they such a controversial item?
So I think part one of that is we don't really know how many data centers there are. I've seen different numbers that range from 95 to 100 to 108 to 195. It depends on the size. They can be small or really large, but they're impacting everybody already. Consumers saw large rate increases last summer, and those rate increases were due to big tech. Large energy users were increasing capacity, which meant that we need to build more infrastructure, we need more. And to give you an idea of the scope of the problem, in the ComEd territory, which is the northern region of Illinois, right now peak power is 24 gigawatts. There are 28 gigawatts of data centers in the queue wanting to be built.
I can't do the math offhand like that in my head, but it sounds like that's a lot of gigahertz or
gigawatts. Yeah.
Gigawatts. I'm sorry, not gigahertz, gigawatts. So then, what communities are feeling this like most acutely? I mean, I know in some suburbs and even here in the city, folks are really, going to town meetings and really discussing this.
Yeah, I think the thing is that every community is struggling with what we're going to do with data centers. I've heard stories, Aurora has a moratorium because of an issue that happened there.
And they already have a bunch of data centers out there.
They do. They just had a really challenging problem with one of them that disconnected from the grid for 3 days. And the neighbor said it sounded like a jet engine in their neighborhood and smelled like diesel.
Wow.
And in a neighborhood area, because they are cited like warehouses, and Naperville just turned one down. But I just saw a Republican state representative from far downstate Illinois who put in a bill against data centers. And I think all over the state, communities are not sure what to do with these, and they're hearing a huge public outcry.
All right, so what is your proposal that you're introducing?
Yeah, so our proposal is the Power Act, and we are back with the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition. I know we just passed a really big energy bill in the fall, the Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act, but we weren't able to address these large energy users because there wasn't the political will yet. And we're getting closer and closer, and this is the Power Act, Protecting Our Water, Energy, and Ratepayers Act. And this bill will deal with climate, community, and water.
Well, let's start on the rate-paying part of it. So how do you protect homeowners who look at their ComEd bills skyrocketing because a data center just went up a couple blocks away?
Yeah, so data centers need to pay their fair share. Like Governor Pritzker said, they need to pay for the cost that they're causing. And when they use more energy, it's not a supply and demand where we have more demand, the prices are going down. No, you have to build more infrastructure when you need that capacity. And so that right now, consumers, ratepayers are footing the bill. You may be paying whatever you are a month for ChatGPT, but you're also paying on your electric bill because these data centers require more energy to be used, more energy on the grid.
Well, what's a fair way to determine how much they should be responsible for? Because it's not just the energy that they're consuming, but then the pressure they're putting on the grid.
Yeah, so they need to build new infrastructure. And so we have some provisions related to ratepayers ensuring that data centers have to pay for all of that. But one of the big pieces, the central component of our energy, is bring your own new clean capacity and clean energy. Beyonce is the acronym we're using for it.
Okay,
so,
that's catchy.
That's catchy. So bring your own new clean energy, and making sure that if they're coming, we're not keeping fossil fuel plants open. We're not building new methane gas plants. We need to protect climate while we're doing this to not have those impacts on the consumers as well.
So you're saying diversifying, because I know this has been a cause that you've been on for many years, but diversifying the energy supply with more clean and renewable, will that help protect rates? I mean, if Illinois is getting energy from solar and wind and nuclear?
Well, I think our bill takes both approaches. So first, that it has to be bringing their own clean energy if you're a data center, but also dealing with the rate impacts where there might be rate increases, and not just for energy, but also for water.
All right, let's talk about water. First of all, I know a lot of folks are worried in the Great Lakes, the largest freshwater supply. So companies that want to set up data centers, they're looking at the Great Lakes. How much water do they consume?
So that's another thing we don't know, and it's up to 5 million gallons a day. There are some data centers that are
5 million gallons a day?
5 million gallons a day that these data centers could be using, and we know are using. Some are using less. There are closed loop systems that are very efficient, but we still don't know what's evaporating there. We don't know where the water is coming from. Are they sucking it directly from Lake Michigan? Are they taking it from an aquifer that has nothing
How do we not
else
know
in
that
it?
at this point?
We don't know. Actually, that's an issue with Illinois groundwater law. We think we have so much water, whether it's groundwater or Lake Michigan water in the Midwest. We still need to be incredibly careful with it. And so we don't have great laws about water withdrawal and use. And that is something that is being shown throughout the state of Illinois, whether it's Lake Michigan water or you're out in Joliet taking from the aquifer. Lots of water are going to big tech right now.
So what does this bill do to preserve our water supply?
So first, figuring out how much water, so adding some transparency, requiring a permit for water use, requiring things on water efficiency. Also, none of these data centers should be using clean treated drinking water. That's expensive. We have to put a lot of resources in it. They could be reusing water, using industrial effluent, that sort of thing. All they're doing is cooling equipment. They don't need to take our clean water, but they do need to protect it, be efficient about it. So we have a huge number of provisions related to water in the bill, and Alliance for the Great Lakes was central in putting a report out on that and writing a lot of these pieces.
All right, Jen Walling from the Illinois Environmental Council. Very important issue. Every community dealing with this, I would assume that legislators are going to be very interested to debate and consider this proposal.
I hope so.
And Governor Pritzker mentioned it himself. All right, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Well, that is our show. Questions or comments? Do you have a story you want us to look into, like data centers? Or do you know some data centers going up and you want to tell us about it? Anything. Email me at parisonpolitics@fox.com. And that's it for us tonight. As we said, don't forget our debates. They start next Monday with the Senate debate live at 6 o'clock. And as always, keep up with all the news that you need to know at fox32chicago.com and with the Fox local app. Meanwhile, we are back here tomorrow night, same time. Enjoy this warming weather right now, and we'll see you next time.